Thank you for joining me on the Darren Chatter podcast. I'm going to be reading some of my blog posts that I have written so that you can consume this information in an audio format versus reading the blogs if this is more to your liking. I'm going to share with you stories from my past as an athlete, as a coach, as a salesperson, as a business professional, as a VP of sales, everything that I have learned and amassed along the way in my 50 years here on planet Earth. I'm going to hope to share with you in order to help you shorten your learning curve, understand maybe a little different way to look at things, and hopefully learn a few things along the way. So here was the podcast you tuned in for. I hope you enjoy it. Please reach out to me when you can and let me know your thoughts. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Darren here. Thank you for joining me for another podcast. This will be blog number 104. The title is Pain is Inevitable, but Suffering is Optional. I wrote this on October 19th, 2019, and the photo that I chose for this blog is a picture of Olympic marathon runner Hayley Carruthers of Great Britain. She collapsed just short of the finish line at the London Olympics and literally on her hands and knees crawled across the finish line. The reason I love this picture and the essence of this blog is basically this. You never know what you're really capable of until you are truly tested. I've been in situations like this. We'll call it my own personal Olympics. It wasn't on a grand scale in front of the world like it was for Hayley Carruthers, but my situation meant a lot to me. And over the years, I have learned that you can't measure things like this based on outside perception, but they should be measured by your own internal importance instead. I have been fortunate enough that more than one time I have been tested in situations so difficult, I thought literally that I might die in the process of this. Yes, the actual thought that I should stop what I'm doing because it's going to be too much for me to take, too much for my body to withstand, that I should stop for my own good. Those thoughts went through my head. That's when you have to decide one thing. How much pain am I willing to endure? In my mind, all of life comes down to that same thought. How much pain are you willing to endure? As my personal situations have ended up proving, I have a far greater capacity for physical pain than I thought I did, and seemingly for more than a lot of other people do too. I shared an example with a link in this blog, and I will share that story at the end of this as well. It is a stout physical test, believe me. Like I mentioned earlier, it wasn't in front of the world or even during a competitive event. This took place during a routine workout at the Phoenix Swim Club with a bunch of NFL players who were doing an off-season workout with the personal trainer that I also worked out with. I wasn't planning on doing anything other than surviving the drill that we were doing, but as it turned out, I learned an awful lot about myself that day. One of the things I learned that just because you are a multi-million-dollar athlete doesn't mean you have the heart to push forward. The kind of heart that the trainer has to decide when you should stop. As he said that day, and I quote, "We need to shut this down, otherwise Shank is going to die out here and I can't have that on my resume." Unquote. Heart, determination, inner strength, whatever you call it, it's the thing inside you that allows you to take more, to want to take more. That inner voice that's telling you to the level that makes you question your own sanity at times. As the old saying goes, it's mind over matter, and if you don't mind, it don't matter. Of course, not everything should be suffered through. There are plenty of life situations that should be changed, exited, or avoided. But when you have the chance to really test yourself, to really see what your breaking point is, I personally think you should take it. As a coach, I did my best to push people beyond what they thought they could do. To help another person break through the preset limitations that they have for themselves is an awesome privilege. And I can't thank enough of those who I have shared those moments with. It has been special moments in time, a bond that will never be broken. I don't want to single anyone out as an example for fear of diminishing the stories of the others as well. but I can honestly say that each one of these experiences is burned into my brain and my soul. It changes you to go through these moments, whether it's as a coach or as a player. Maybe your challenge isn't physical, but something that's mental or emotional. The above thoughts still apply, in my opinion, because you just have to reframe the story to meet the narrative. If you started a business, changed jobs, undertaking a creative endeavor, whatever it is, you have to learn to suffer. And you have to build the capacity to suffer just a little bit more. Remember, pain is temporary, but victories are forever. Quitting is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Everything worthwhile has a price, and in some cases that price is blood, sweat, and tears. In other cases, it is emotional or psychological pain. Everything that takes work has an element of pain to it. It is a barrier meant to separate the weak from the strong, the good from the great, and the ordinary from the extraordinary. But that pain does not mean you have to suffer. Suffering is a mindset, your own perception of that situation. The pain you feel is the test. The amount that you can take will dictate how far you will go in life. In any endeavor, you have to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Push through what you think are your limits and keep going. But none of this means that you have to suffer in the process. I wish you luck in your endeavor. So the example of that story is one of my favorite ones. Long story short, I was a professional racquetball player. I had a personal trainer that I worked with who also worked with a lot of professional and college athletes. And at the Phoenix Swim Club, they would do off-season preparation camps for the NFL players and the guys getting ready for the combine coming out of college. I got thrown into the mix one day for some workouts. I was very intimidated to be on the field with guys like Donovan McNabb, Aeneas Williams, Andre Hastings, very famous football players, multi-million-dollar athletes, guys I would watch on Sundays play the game. And here's me, a professional racquetball player, literally lost money in my sport versus made any money because I spent more money on travel and hotel fees and tournament entry fees than I ever won in my career. But the point of this story is that one of the days was really hot. We went out onto the field. The exercise that we were doing as a group was 12 of us went out onto inside the track, which they had a makeshift football field lined out. And 6 guys went to one side of the field, 6 guys went to the other. We were about 80 yards apart. The exercise was to put on a harness with a long rope on it and pull a sled that had 3 45-pound weights on it. Now, at the time, I weighed 135 pounds. So I am dragging my body weight behind me on this sled. Also, not being a football player, I didn't have cleats or spikes or anything like that. I was in running shoes on a dry, hard field in the middle of summer trying to get traction so that I could do this. I did my first turn. I was last in line, so I grabbed the harness. I watched the other guys do it. It looked like a struggle. These guys are all a lot bigger than I am. And I put the harness on and I went to take off. And I thought if I had a little bit of slack in the line, when I run out there, I'll get a good head start on it and it'll pull a little easier. Well, that didn't work. In fact, what happened was I basically looked like a dog who's on a leash and running away, and all of a sudden comes to the end of the length of the leash, and I fell flat on my ass. Everybody laughed. I was super embarrassed. I felt like, man, I don't belong out here with these guys. I should not be doing this. But the other voice in my head that I heard was get up and do it. Go. And so I did. I stood up. I took off. I clawed my way down the field. I was slipping and sliding all over the place. I ran the 80 yards. I took the harness off. My legs were on fire. My calves were just already extremely tired. I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do another one of those. We go through the rotation again. 6 guys go down, 6 guys come back. It's my turn. I go through, I do it again. This time I don't fall down. I get down to the end and I'm like, oh my God, I can't do any more of this. I am exhausted. This is too hard. For these guys are bigger than I am. They're stronger. These guys get paid to do this stuff. All these thoughts were going through my head. And then I noticed that 2 of the guys walked away. Guys that are preparing for their NFL season, who make millions of dollars a year, gave up before I did. So round 3 comes and I do it again. I put the harness on and I start running down the field. And I am struggling. And now the guys are cheering for me. They know how hard I'm working. They know that this is hard for me and that I'm fighting through it. And they start to cheer me on. I get down to the end. I take the harness off and I thought I was going to throw up. It was so physically difficult. I thought, that's it. I'm going to have to tap out. I can't do another round of this. I look up, 2 more guys walk away. So we're now down to 8 guys, which means my turn is going to come up faster. I'm getting less rest in between as guys keep dropping out. So round number 4 comes. I'm the last in line. I put the harness on. I start running down the field and I can feel my calves starting to cramp. I literally am physically running out of gas. I get about 10 yards from where the finish line was and I slip and fall. And like Haley Carruthers in that blog post picture, I crawled hands and knees, digging my fingernails into the dirt until I crossed the finish line. I rolled over, I took the harness off, and so the next guy could go, and I laid there, the sweat just pouring out of me, the sun beating down on me. The trainer comes over and looks down at me and says, all right, we're shutting this down. Shank's going to die out here if we keep going, and I can't have that on my resume. I sat up, and he helped me get to my feet, and I kind of dusted myself off, and he just kind of smacked me on the ass and said, great job, man. Let's go inside. We went inside, and the 4 guys who quit early were sitting inside waiting for the rest of us to come in because we were going to do a group ab workout. I'm covered in dirt, sweating like crazy. I walked in, I took my shirt off and shook it off outside and then walked in, and every one of those guys came up and gave me a fist bump and said, that was tough, man. Good job. I couldn't believe it. I never would have thought I could have endured something like that or outworked guys that were athletes that I respected that made millions of dollars playing the sport that they were good at. I learned a lot that day. And like I said in the blog post, it's not the size of the person, it's the size of the heart in the person that matters. I know from doing that and other physical tasks that I can take a lot more than many people, that I'm willing to push harder, to ignore that voice in my head that tells me to stop and listen to the one that tells me you can do it. Keep going. Go. That's the voice I focus in on. You need to find that same voice in your head. Start small. Do things that you are pretty sure you can accomplish, whether it's going for a hike or doing a max bench or whatever it may be that's a physical test. Put yourself to the test and do a little bit more. And keep pushing yourself, because the limits that you set for yourself are not your actual limits. It's what you think you can do, not what you're actually capable of. You need to find ways to break through those barriers that we all set for ourselves and know that your own limitations are far farther down the road than what you ever imagined them to be. So with that thought, I'll wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed the podcast and this extra little story that I added to it. If you get the opportunity to do so, go to the blog, read it. or send me a message. Let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I wish you luck in your endeavors.